Welcome to Vermontitude, a collaborative effort between Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and BCTV to bring you the stories behind the stories on the topics you want to learn more about. Because there's always more, so there'll always be Vermontitude. Hosted by me, Peter Fish Case. Welcome to Vermontitude. New episodes drop every Tuesday and can be found by going to vermontitude.com, reformer.com, brattleboro.tv, and locally on Comcast Channel 1078. We come to you from our studios at the Innovation Box on Landmark Hill. I'm Peter Fish Case, and each week I cover the topics that are of concern to Windham County and the towns that reside within its borders. Today, we are speaking with Groundworks Collaborative's new Executive Director, Libby Bennett. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
How are you?
I am doing well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So I know we've had Josh, your predecessor, which feels weird to say still, but I'll get to that in a minute. On the program a few times, talking about various different issues. Today we're not talking about anything heavy. We're not talking about anything weighty.
Oh, thank goodness.
We are just talking about Libby Bennett. And now you came from the development side of things. How long have you been at Groundworks?
Well, I've been at Groundworks, and before we were Groundworks, we were Morningside Shelter and the Brattleboro Area Drop-In Center. You remember? We've known each other a long time.
A long time.
I started at Morningside Shelter as an intern in 2011.
Wow.
And I joined the staff in 2012.
Okay.
And have been largely in a development role. I started at Morningside as the representative payee, which was a split position with the development, because back then there were 7 of us on the staff.
Yeah,
so we had a lot of mixed positions.
Now.
So it's been a long time. I started as an intern. Knowles Wentworth and I launched the first Hike for the Homeless, and that was my internship coming out of my grad program at SIT.
Right? Oh, you know what? I forgot that Knowles had something to do with that. I did. I really did. Yeah. That is going back a while.
Yeah.
All right. So here you are. You're now the executive director. Congratulations. I think that's awesome. I think as soon as Josh had let me know that he was going to accept another position, I think I texted you and you're going for it, right? So I was so happy to see that you got it. I think it's all right in so many ways. Josh was a guy who put a lot of systems in play at Groundworks and did a lot of hard work, especially through the merger and even when it was just Morningside. But talk to me about a few of those things that are just going to be like those redwoods that just are not going anywhere.
Oh, I love this question.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, Josh and I have been, in lockstep for, it was 11 and a half years.
Right.
He was my supervisor. We worked together that whole time. And the things that I love and will always hold on to about the sort of organization that we built together and, under his leadership, are the sort of, I think some of the biggest pieces are the sort of love that exists in this organization and the sort of heart-centered approach that we take. We care for the people that we serve. We care for the people that are our employees.
Right.
There's a lot of leading with vulnerability and curiosity that I find incredibly valuable and certainly speak to my approach. And we've always been a really tenacious organization where, we're always learning. And so there's this piece around offering sort of not just vulnerability when it's going to help the situation to flourish, but also the piece around giving and receiving feedback. And so we're always looking at how can we do better, always looking for people to sort of scrutinize our approach and look at how we can do more with what we have.
Right. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts stuff then, and talk about services now. And I know that whenever we would have a conversation with Josh or yourself, the need is always kind of going up and to the right, which is not where you want it to go at all.
No.
So are we still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are. We have more people coming to us for services all the time. You know, I look at FoodWorks where we have double-digit increases in new households coming to us each month. Of late, the recent high watermark was 109 brand new households coming to FoodWorks in a single month to shop for the first time. And so those numbers have been going up and up since we reopened for in-person shopping in, I think it was June 2022.
Right.
And ever since then, it's every month a huge increase in new people. So a program that was serving just under 4,000 people a year has now, I think we're on pace to serve about 4,400 people in the food shelf program alone this year.
In total?
In total for Groundworks, I think we're probably on pace for about 4,500 people this year, knowing that a lot of the folks who use our shelter and housing services are also using FoodWorks. And so there's a number of overlaps there.
Right.
We're probably serving around 500 people in shelter and housing services every year at this point.
So here's kind of it's a big question, and I don't expect a simple answer. Why? Why is this need growing so much? Why have we not figured this out yet?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It's not rocket science. We have figured it out.
Right.
We need the political will and the coordinated resources to come together at the same time. Much like we saw a lot of that happen during the pandemic. We saw an infusion of resources into keeping people in shelter and motels, providing additional 3 Squares benefits, providing additional access to food through things like the Everyone Eats program. I mean, we really saw the state and our communities rally around people during the pandemic.
Right.
And a lot of that is falling away now. And so we see people, the need is still there and great, and people are kind of having those supports pulled back bit by bit. It was about a year ago, I think people's 3 Squares benefits went back to the pre-pandemic levels. And so where people were getting a fair amount more during the pandemic, thanks to all of the COVID relief funds that were channeling into the state, people aren't getting that anymore. And certainly, you know, over that time, we saw inflation increase. We all have seen our grocery bills go up, our fuel bills go up. And so now the support that was there to recognize that is really falling away. And you see that in the motel program emptying out every so many months. We've got another exodus from the motels. It's tough because we've seen what it looks like to really bolster that support in the community. But we're seeing it all fall away. Yeah,
it's very frustrating. I remember like within days of the world shutting down, it was a long 2 weeks. It literally all homeless. Everybody was housed like within 24 hours. So we know it's possible. It has to be frustrating to be doing what you're doing, what Josh was doing, and then have that just slowly stripped away. I remember one of the conversations that I had with him talking about like the first round of motel programs ending and feeling powerless to do anything about it except hand somebody a tent. We love that you had a warm bed last night and a place to shower, but here's your tent. What do people do about it though?
It's an awful position to be in.
Right.
And say, is this the best we can do? I think that the challenge is, this shortage of housing is the worst it's ever been. People of all strata of society wanted to make Vermont home during the pandemic, and we have a gridlocked housing market where there just isn't the housing stock available to meet the need. And so you've had more people, ask to leave housing for no fault of their own,
right.
Because a new landlord is coming in, they're making renovations. We've had people, there was a period we were getting calls every day saying, I've paid my rent every month. I'm being asked to leave and I have nowhere to go. I can't afford anything that's on the market. And so we've seen a lot of new people enter into homelessness.
So we're talking about able-bodied people who have been working, paying their rent, being asked to leave, and then. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say it's hard for me to generalize anyone in particular. You can't do that. No.
But it just speaks to a few things that I think people don't think about in these situations where you do have these landlords that come in, they want to renovate, they want to bring that property up to a higher level to get more rent, which means that the people who could afford to stay there now have to move, but can't move into another affordable space.
Yeah. And you see that in the housing market as well. It's like maybe I don't need as large a house as I once did, but there's nowhere to move into. And even if my own property value has gone up, even if I can sell my house for a whole lot, I can't afford to move into anything that's available on the market. So just this entire gridlock that we're seeing is keeping. I attribute it to, and the sort of model is thinking about the game of musical chairs.
Yeah,
right? You've got not enough chairs, and everybody's got to find one when the music stops. And we always say, the guy with the broken leg isn't going to be the guy who makes it to that final chair any faster than anyone else. So we have such a shortage. We had a less than 1% vacancy rate before the pandemic in Windham County. And I don't think that the research has been done to tell us exactly what that number is now, but anecdotally, we know it's a lot less.
Yeah, yeah.
And the all of the investments that are being made into building new housing, building affordable housing, it'll be years before we've got people handed the keys.
And I think that's the frustrating thing. I mean, people don't realize these are not quick fixes.
No.
I mean, the last motel program ended, and the governor thought putting a 100-bed shelter up at the VY thing is, and the funny thing is, I learned not late in the game, but mid in the game that they didn't even ask the local people who are the experts about it. They didn't consult with you at all about how to do this. Is that frustrating for you?
I mean, there have been prior iterations where we've been asked, not necessarily by the Scott administration but to be in a conversation about what would it look like to stand up a 100-bed shelter in this community. And Groundworks has said, we'd be willing to provide technical assistance. We have exactly the capacity that we need to run what we're running.
Right.
And we would not be able to stretch beyond that to think about, a 100-bed shelter is more than 3 times the size of what we're running now.
Right.
That, we could tell you these are the staffing ratios that you'll need to stand that up successfully. But we're not able to be part of that process. So, we're happy to provide some technical assistance. But that's about where we can start and stop.
That's where and
we're going to be able to say, you're going to need to provide transportation or figure out how people are going to get there.
Right.
You're going to need to figure out how you're going to feed people, how you're going to allow for enough people to shower, et cetera, et cetera. We can talk all day about what the needs are. But I think, in the end, those shelters, the shelter in Brattleboro was not utilized until the 4th night. There was one person finally stayed there on the 4th night.
Yeah, I think it was the 5th night, but yeah.
And, it was clear that and it wasn't for lack of us going into the hotels and saying, if you're going to lose your room tonight, by the way, there's this shelter. We were telling people, and people did not choose to use that shelter. But we also the sort of Groundworks story there is that we worked to mobilized our teams, our case managers, social workers on our team were able to work with people to get that variance form filled out that would show that people had a disability or medical condition that would, if you've got to be on oxygen, you can't be living outside.
Right.
And so we were able to mobilize and make sure that no one on our caseload lost a motel in that last round.
Good for you.
Mid-March. So
here we go.
Such an inordinate sort of volume of work to do on a short timeline to get that to happen. But, we're proud of our response and feel like ultimately we know that other organizations in the state didn't have the same ability to mobilize the way that we did. And a lot of people around the state did lose their motel rooms.
Well, I think you guys got through that okay. I mean, it's all you can do is just hope for okay. And I'm sorry about that. But I think you guys did as good a job as you could. That was kind of a mess that turned out, I guess, as far as Groundworks is concerned, okay. And you keep doing the good work that you're doing. Bright new smiley face at the helm. So we love that. Libby Bennett, thanks for jumping on Vermontitude today.
Thanks for having me.
All right.